The heavy iron door groaned shut with a finality that echoed deep within the labyrinth beneath Prague, sealing Elena Novak in the dimly lit chamber that smelled of damp stone and ancient secrets. Her breath came steady but measured, a practiced calm belying the storm of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Before her, the room stretched wide, its vaulted ceiling lost in shadows, illuminated only by a single flickering overhead light. At the center stood Victor Krallen, imposing figure whose presence seemed to command the very air around him. Victor's cold grey eyes met Elena's with a steady, unblinking gaze. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored dark suit that contrasted starkly with the rough-hewn stone walls. His posture regal yet relaxed, as though he were the master of this subterranean realm. The vast table beside him was cluttered with a bewildering array of ancient manuscripts, cryptic maps, and folders filled with modern intelligence, files tangible proof of the conspiracy that Elena had painstakingly uncovered. "Elena Novak," Victor began, his voice low and smooth, carrying an authority that brooked no interruption. "I've been expecting you." Elena's eyes narrowed, scanning the room for any hint of a trap. Her fingers curled instinctively around the worn leather strap of her satchel, inside which lay the decoded fragments of the cult's secrets. "Expecting me, or hoping to stop me?" she asked, her tone steady despite the tension knotting her stomach. A shadow of a smile flickered across Victor's lips. "Both, perhaps. You have shown remarkable tenacity, but you underestimate the forces you are meddling with. This is not merely a game of codes and secrets, it is the preservation of power, history, and order." Elena took a cautious step forward, the faint scrape of her boots against the stone floor loud in the silence. "Power maintained by lies and manipulation. You hide behind centuries-old rituals and bloodlines, but the truth will come to light. People deserve to know." Victor's gaze hardened. "Truth, like power, is a matter of perspective. The cult you seek to dismantle has endured because it adapts, because it understands the fragile balance between chaos and control. Without us, the world would descend into chaos." She felt the weight of his words pressing down, the centuries of history tangled in his resolve. Yet, beneath his cold exterior, Elena glimpsed a man torn between ideological loyalty and personal ambition, guardian of a legacy that demanded ruthless preservation. Suddenly, a faint echo drifted through the chamber, the distant sound of footsteps, steady and deliberate. Both Elena and Victor stiffened, awareness sharpening into alertness. The labyrinth beyond the chamber was no longer a silent tomb. It was a living maze, with enemies closing in. Elena's pulse quickened. "You won't win, Victor. The more you hide, the more desperate you become." Victor's eyes flickered with a hint of something almost like respect. "Perhaps, but desperation breeds cunning." As the footsteps grew nearer, the ideological battle gave way to a more primal urgency. Elena's mind raced, calculating her next move, weighing the risks of confrontation against the imperative to survive. Yet even in this moment of peril, her resolve crystallized. The truth was a weapon, and she would wield it no matter the cost. Their voices lowered, the exchange turning into a tense negotiation of wills. "Why do you truly fight for this?" Elena pressed, her voice softer now, searching beneath the layers of menace. Victor's gaze drifted toward the scattered manuscripts, because history is not written by chance, but by those who controlled the narrative. "I am the custodian of that narrative. Without me and my ancestors, the world would forget its past and lose its way." Elena shook her head, her determination unwavering. "The past should teach us, not bind us. Your legacy is a shackle, not a crown." The chamber seemed to hold its breath as their confrontation reached its zenith. Outside, the labyrinth's shadows lengthened, and the distant footsteps turned into a rhythm that matched the pounding of Elena's heart. The fate of the secret archives and, perhaps the future, hinged on the fragile balance between revelation and concealment. "Your fight is not over," Victor warned, stepping closer, his voice a cold promise. "But neither is mine." Elena's eyes blazed with defiance. "Then prepare yourself, because I will not stop." The chapter closed on the charged silence between them, a prelude to the storm that lay ahead. In the heart of the labyrinth, the mastermind had been revealed and the battle for truth was only just beginning. The safe house was a cocoon of shadows. The city's distant hum, a fragile backdrop to the storm raging within Elena Novak's mind. The flickering screen cast eerie reflections across her determined face, her fingers trembling as they hovered above the keyboard. Around her, decrypted files and ancient manuscripts lay scattered, each a thread in the tangled web she was about to unravel publicly for the first time. Jacob's voice broke the heavy silence, low and urgent. "Elena, once this goes public, there's no turning back. They'll come for you, for all of us." His gaze was unwavering, a mixture of warning and loyalty. "You know what they're capable of." She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I know, but hiding it won't make it go away. The world deserves to know." Sophia's pale features were drawn tight, her intense eyes flickering with a mixture of fear and resolve. "My family, they're part of this darkness. I've lived with that burden my whole life, but maybe shining a light is the only way to break free." Her voice cracked but held steady, offering Elena an unexpected anchor. The door opened quietly, and Katerina stepped inside, her presence sharp and purposeful. She carried a recording device, an encrypted comms gear, symbols of a new battlefield. "I'm ready," she said. "When you are." Elena's heart pounded fiercely as she took a deep breath. The choice before her was stark: expose the conspiracy and risk everything, or bury the truth and live with the weight of silence. The night deepened, and with it, Elena's resolve grew. She began preparing the files for transmission, her mind racing through every possible outcome. The shadows outside seemed to close in, but inside, a spark of defiant hope ignited. This was more than a battle for truth. It was a fight for the soul of justice itself. As the first encrypted message was sent out into the digital ether, Elena glanced around at her small band of allies. Fear mingled with determination. The path ahead was perilous, but the choice was made. There was no turning back now. Outside, the city lights blinked silently, unaware of the tremors their secrets would soon unleash. And beneath the surface, hidden eyes watched, poised to strike. Elena's voice, once a whisper in the shadows, was about to become a raw one that could shake the foundations of power and force. The world to confront the hidden truths it had long ignored. The night held its breath, waiting. Elena sat back, her hands trembling slightly as the last file uploaded. Jacob's eyes never left her, his protective stance unyielding. Sophia wiped a stray tear from her cheek, the weight of her family's legacy now intertwined with their shared mission. Katerina leaned forward, fingers poised over the keyboard. "This is it. The world will know." The room seemed to pulse with electricity, a fragile thread connecting courage and danger. Elena's mind flashed back to her mentor, to a promise made in silence years ago, to never let truth be buried. She whispered, more to herself than anyone else, "No matter what comes next, we stand for the truth." The screen blinked, confirming the transmission. And in that moment, the conspiracy's long shadow began to unravel. Darkness would fall, but so too would light rise. The choice was made. The labyrinth's cold embrace released Elena Novak into the fading shadows of dawn, the sharp chill of Prague's morning air biting at her exposed skin. Her hands, still trembling from the harrowing escape, gripped the worn leather satchel, a precious vessel carrying the secrets that could shatter centuries of lies. Each breath she drew crystallized into fleeting puffs of mist, mingling with the distant hum of the awakening city. The labyrinth beneath had been a tomb for many secrets, but for Elena, it had become a crucible of truth and survival. As she stepped onto the cobblestone streets, the weight of what she carried pressed heavily on her mind. The manuscripts, brittle with age, and the digital drives, humming faintly with encrypted data, were more than mere artifacts. They were the key to unraveling a conspiracy that reached into the highest echelons of power. Yet the cold light of dawn offered no comfort, only a stark reminder that the shadows she fled still stretched far beyond the labyrinth's walls. Back at the safe house, a nondescript apartment nestled within Prague's historic quarter, Jack, Marek, and Sophia Lang awaited her return. The room was dimly lit by a solitary lamp, its flickering glow casting elongated shadows that danced across the scattered papers and cryptic notes pinned to the walls. Jacob's rugged features were taut with fatigue and concern, while Sophia's pale face was etched with a mixture of fascination and dread. "You made it." Jacob's voice was low but steady, a rare softness breaking through his usual pragmatism. Elena nodded, her sharp eyes scanning the room before she allowed herself a moment to exhale. "We're not safe yet," she whispered, placing the satchel carefully on the table. "This evidence, it's more than we imagined. The cult's influence isn't just historically, it's alive, embedded within governments, institutions, even here in Prague." Sophia leaned forward, her intense gaze fixed on a faded manuscript. "These rituals, these codes, they're not relics. They're active protocols, a blueprint for manipulation." Jacob's cynical edge surfaced. "And now that we have this, we've painted a target on our backs." Elena's mind raced as she spread the documents across the table, the dim light revealing intricate symbols intertwined with modern intelligence reports. The web of deceit was vast threads, connecting medieval cults to contemporary political figures, shadowy alliances masked by layers of secrecy. Each revelation deepened the peril they faced. Hours slipped by as they worked, piecing together the sprawling puzzle. The tension in the room thickened with every decoded passage, every corroborated fact. Despite their combined expertise, the enormity of the conspiracy threatened to overwhelm them. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. The abrupt silence was shattered only by the muffled sound of footsteps approaching from the stairwell. Instinctively, Elena reached for a concealed handgun beneath the table, her heart pounding in her chest. Jacob motioned for silence, his eyes scanning the shadowed doorway. "They've found us." Sophia's breath caught, her fingers clutching a cryptic manuscript, as if it could shield her from the encroaching danger. Elena's mind snapped into focus. The fight was far from over. "We stick together," Elena commanded softly, the resolve in her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. "We protect this evidence at all costs. If they want to silence us, they'll have to go through me first." Outside, the city stirred, unaware of the deadly game unfolding in its heart. But Elena knew the conspiracy's reach was infinite, its shadows long and merciless. The battle for truth had only just begun, and in the labyrinth of secrets, every step forward was a step into the unknown. With a final glance at her allies, Elena steeled herself for the coming storm. The evidence was out of the labyrinth, but the war for revelation and survival was only escalating. The dawn had broken, but the darkness still clung tightly to Prague's veins, and Elena Novak was determined to be the light that would expose it. The labyrinth had tried to claim her, but she had emerged with the truth, and now the world would have to reckon with its shadows. The rain fell steadily outside the battered windows of the safe house nestled deep within Prague's labyrinthine backstreets. Inside, Elena Novak sat hunched over her laptop, the pale blue light illuminating the sharp angles of her face, casting deep shadows that mirrored the turmoil roiling within her mind. Each decrypted file, each fragment of the ancient cipher, had brought her closer to the truth, but also deeper into danger. She knew the walls were closing in. Jakub Marek leaned against the cracked brick wall outside, his breath fogging in the cold night air. His eyes scanned the dimly lit streets, alert for any sign of surveillance drones or the dreaded agents who had made Elena's life a relentless game of cat and mouse. "They're tightening the noose," he muttered, voice low and urgent as Elena joined him beneath the flickering lamp. "We need to draw lines in the sand, decide who's truly with us and who's waiting to strike." Elena nodded grimly. "Every step forward risks everything," she whispered. "But if we don't act now, the conspiracy will silence us permanently." Inside, Sophia Lang's pale fingers trembled as she passed Elena a seemingly innocuous document, its margins filled with a hidden metacode she had painstakingly uncovered. This could be the key," Sophia said softly, her intense eyes betraying the weight of her discovery. "It's embedded in the past, but points directly to the present. The cult's influence runs deeper than we imagined. And now, so does the danger." Katerina Vasela's voice came steady and firm over the encrypted channel, her words a cryptic warning to the underground network that still believed in exposing the truth. "They're watching us. They're waiting for a misstep. But we will not be silenced. Not tonight, not ever." The group gathered once more in the cramped safe house, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Elena laid out the plan, a coordinated release of the evidence, timed to maximize exposure while minimizing risk. But as they spoke, old wounds and mistrust surfaced. Jakub's shadowy past as an intelligence officer made Elena wary. Sophia's secret family ties to the cult complicated loyalties. Katerina's relentless pursuit of the story risked drawing unwanted attention. "We have to be smarter," Elena said, her voice steady but edged with exhaustion. "We can't afford fractures now. The enemy is sophisticated, ruthless. They'll exploit any weakness." Jakub's gaze hardened. "Then we watch each other's backs. No secrets, complete transparency." Sophia hesitated, then nodded. For the truth, Katerina's eyes burned with resolve. For the future, outside, the city's ancient stones whispered of secrets long buried beneath its streets. Inside, 4 figures stood at the crossroads of history and power, ready to challenge the shadows that sought to control them. But in this game of secrets and betrayal, trust was the rarest and most dangerous currency of all. As the night deepened, Elena stared at the encrypted files glowing on her screen, the lines of code blurring into a single question. Could they draw a line in the sand that would hold, or would it wash away under the tide of conspiracy? The answer would come soon enough. The cost would be far greater than any of them imagined. The safe house was silent, but for the steady tapping of keys and whispered strategizing. Elena's mind raced through possibilities, weighing risks with the precision of a cryptographer. Every ally was a potential threat, every shadow a possible assassin. She traced the cipher's threads through history and power, seeing the cult's poisonous roots entwined with modern governments. Jakub's voice broke through the haze. "We've got eyes on us. New players, highly trained. They're not just after you, they want the evidence." Sophia's revelation complicated the picture. My family's involvement, it's not just history. They're still active, and they know we're coming. Katerina's contacts warned of tightening media blackouts and increasing disappearances. The city itself seemed to hold its breath beneath the weight of unseen forces. Elena drew a breath, steadying herself. We go forward, but carefully. Each move calculated. Any misstep could be our last. The lines in the sand had been drawn. Now, it was time to stand firm. Outside, the rain eased into a quiet drizzle, the city lights shimmering on wet cobblestones. Elena looked out the window, feeling the heavy burden of truth pressing down on her shoulders. She was no longer just a cryptographer decoding ancient texts. She was a guardian of secrets that could topple empires or ignite revolutions. And the game was far from over. The night was waiting, and so was the darkness. The air in the small cafe was thick with the scent of strong coffee and stale smoke, a familiar refuge for those who preferred shadows to sunlight. Elena Novak sat stiffly, her fingers wrapped tightly around a chipped ceramic cup, eyes fixed on Jakub Marek across the table. He lounged with an ease she envied but didn't share, his rugged features shadowed beneath the brim of his worn leather jacket. Around them, muted conversations swirled like the fog creeping through the narrow streets outside. "You're quiet," Jakub said, voice low but edged with teasing. "Thought you'd have more to say after the last meeting." Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. Trust doesn't come easy when the enemy could be anyone. Jakub's gaze sharpened. "You think I'm hiding something?" She met his eyes steadily. "I think we all have secrets now, but I need to know where you stand." The moment hung heavy. Jakub's jaw tensed. Then he nodded slowly. "I'm with you, Elena. Always. But sometimes, the past doesn't stay buried." That admission unsettled her more than any denial could. The past was a labyrinth of shadows, and every secret it held was a potential dagger in her back. Later that evening, Elena found herself in Sophia Lang's cramped apartment, a sanctuary cluttered with ancient tomes, cryptic manuscripts, and the faint smell of old paper. Sophia's pale face was drawn tight with anxiety as she produced a faded photograph from a worn envelope, a black and white image of robed figures gathered around a fire, faces obscured but unmistakably linked to the cult Elena had spent months unraveling. "This is my family," Sophia whispered, voice trembling. "They were part of it. I didn't want to believe it, but..." Elena reached out, her hand steadying Sophia's. "We all carry our histories, but that doesn't define who we are now." Sophia's eyes, fierce and haunted, met hers. "I want to help, but it's a risk. We don't have the luxury of playing it safe anymore," Elena replied softly. "Not when the stakes are this high." The fragile alliance between them deepened, but shadows of doubt lingered, threading tension through their partnership. One late night in the archives, Elena was alone amid the towering shelves of forgotten secrets. The chill of the stone walls seeped into her bones as she traced her fingers over brittle documents, the weight of history pressing down. A sudden creak echoed a soft but distinct sound in the cavernous space. Spinning around, heart pounding, she found Katerina Vesela standing silently in the doorway, her presence both a surprise and a silent challenge. "I didn't mean to startle you," Katerina said, voice low and steady. "But we need to talk. There's more at risk now." Elena studied her carefully, questioning the journalist's sudden appearance in this hidden sanctum. "Why now?" "Because the story's bigger than either of us imagined," Katerina replied, "and the people behind it won't stop until we're silenced." The uneasy alliance was forged in whispered urgency, an acknowledgement that survival meant leaning on those you might otherwise distrust. As a violent storm unleashed its fury outside, Elena stood alone before a rain-speckled window, watching droplets race each other down the glass. Thunder rumbled like the turmoil within her soul. Her reflection stared back, sharp eyes shadowed with doubt and resolve. Who could she trust? Jacob, with his guarded past. Sophia, carrying the burden of her bloodline. Katerina, whose motives blurred between ally and opportunist. The labyrinth of deceit wrapped tighter around her, and every step forward was a gamble on faith and fear. She clenched her fists. The conspiracy might be closing in, but Elena Novak was far from defeated. She would face the shadows alone if she had to, but she would not let the truth die in silence. The battle lines were drawn, and the next move belonged to her. But in a world where friends could be foes and every secret was a weapon, one question remained: who would survive the reckoning? And as the storm raged on outside, Elena's mind raced, plotting, questioning, preparing for the inevitable confrontation that would decide not only her fate, but the fate of the city beneath the shadows. The night was far from over. The safe house was cloaked in near darkness, a single lamp flickering against the peeling paint of cracked plaster walls. Elena sat hunched over a cluttered wooden table, her sharp eyes scanning lines of decrypted text glowing on her laptop screen. Across from her, Katerina Vesela leaned in, her expression taut with concentration as she cross-referenced the documents Elena had painstakingly decoded. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and old paper. The only sound a low hum from the computer's fan and the occasional scribble of Katerina's pen. "This is it," Katerina whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "Every link, every shadowy connection, it's all here. The cult's threads weaving through government corridors, hidden in plain sight." Elena nodded, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "It's more than I ever imagined. The depth, the reach. It's terrifying. But if we don't expose this, no one will." Outside, Jacob Marek stood guard, his silhouette sharp against the faint glow of Prague's streetlights, filtering through the curtained window. His eyes never rested, every creak and distant footstep setting his nerves on edge. The city's usual chorus of night sounds, the clatter of trams, the murmur of distant conversations felt alien here, intensified by the silence inside. "We can't afford a misstep," Jacob's voice cut through the tension as he entered the room, his presence a grounding force. "They're watching, Elena. The moment this hits the public, there'll be no turning back." Elena met his gaze, the flicker of fear shadowed by an unyielding resolve. "I know, but silence only protects them. We have to trust that the truth will outlast their power." Hours stretched as they compiled the dossier-encrypted files, historical records, decrypted correspondences, peace, a nail in the coffin of the conspiracy. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she uploaded the final encrypted package onto a secure server, the cursor blinking steadily as progress bars inched forward. The weight of what they were about to unleash pressed down on her like a physical force, her breath catching in her throat. "Done," she exhaled, closing her eyes briefly as if to brace herself. Katerina's phone buzzed sharply, jolting the room from its fragile calm. She checked the screen, her eyes widening. The first outlets are picking it up: logs, independent journalists, the stories going viral. Jacob moved to the window, peering out into the darkened street. "They'll come for us now. We need to be ready." Elena rose, straightening her back. "Let them come. The truth is out. No matter what happens next, this changes everything." The night deepened, Prague's ancient stones absorbing the first tremors of a political quake. Inside the safe house, amidst shadows and flickering lamplight, three figures prepared to face the storm they had unleashed, united by conviction. yet vulnerable to the dangers that lurked in every secret they had dared to reveal. As dawn threatened to break over the city, a new chapter in the battle for truth had begun, its outcome uncertain, but its impact inevitable. Elena's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and hope. Her fight was far from over, but for the first time, the silence was broken. "We've lit the fuse," Katerina said quietly, her eyes reflecting the faint morning light. "Now, we wait." Outside, the city stirred, unaware that beneath its cobblestone streets and Gothic spires, a hidden war for power and secrets was raging, one that would test loyalty, courage, and the very meaning of trust itself. And in that fragile moment, as the first headlines splashed across screens worldwide, Elena knew one thing with absolute certainty: the conspiracy would not fade quietly into the night. The game had changed. The truth was out. And now, the shadows were coming for them all. The early morning light spilled over the rooftops of Prague, the city awakening beneath a pale dawn sky. Elena Novak stood silently on the ledge of an old building, the cold biting through her practical jacket, her breath visible in the crisp air. Below, the labyrinthine streets stretched out like veins, the shadows of centuries-old secrets casting long shapes against the waking world. For a moment, she allowed herself to simply observe the quiet beauty of the city she had grown up in, the place that now harbored dangers far beyond anything she had imagined. The weight of everything she had uncovered pressed heavily on her mind. The conspiracy, the betrayal, the lives ruined and lost. It all converged in her memory, like the intricate cipher she had spent months decoding. Yet, amidst the turmoil and fear, a singular thought emerged, clear and resolute. She could not turn back. The truth was a flame that once lit could not be extinguished. It was her burden to carry, her mission to see through. A soft chime from her phone broke her reverie. It was Jacob, she answered swiftly. "Jacob," she whispered, barely moving her lips. "We've got the files ready," he said, voice low but steady. "Safe house is secure for now, but they're closing in." Elena nodded, even though he could not see her. "I'm on my way." Minutes later, she found herself in the cramped, dimly lit room that served as their sanctuary. The hum of the laptop filled the silence as Jacob scrolled through encrypted documents, their faces lit by the soft glow of the screen. Outside, the city was alive, oblivious to the quiet war taking place beneath its surface. "They won't stop," Jacob murmured, eyes sharp, scanning each line. "But neither will we." Elena met his gaze, her own eyes hardening with determination. "We have to be smarter, faster." Their alliance, forged in trust and necessity, was their strongest weapon against the shadows that sought to consume them. Yet, the fragile trust was a constant battle, each moment laden with the possibility of betrayal. But in this moment, they were united, guardians of a truth too dangerous to ignore. Later that day, Elena met Katerina Vesela in a quiet cafe tucked away in one of Prague's lesser-known quarters. Katerina's presence was a beacon of hope. The power of the press, the possibility that the world might finally learn what had been hidden for centuries. "Are you ready for this?" Katerina asked, her recorder poised, eyes steady despite the risk. Elena took a deep breath, the weight of the world balanced on her shoulders. "I have to be, for all those who suffered in silence, for every secret buried beneath these streets." The interview unfolded with a mixture of tension and resolve. Each word was a thread pulled from the tapestry of lies, each revelation a crack in the facade of power. The glow of the single lamp cast shadows on their faces, a metaphor for the fragile light they sought to shine in the darkness. As dusk settled, Elena returned to the archives beneath the city, her sanctuary and her prison. The maze of corridors echoed with silence, the cold stone walls bearing witness to centuries of secrets. She approached the secure case, the Cipher manuscript resting within. With trembling hands, she closed the lid and clicked the lock into place. The sound was soft but definitive, a promise to continue the fight, to protect the knowledge and wield it with care. Alone in the stillness, Elena allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The path ahead was perilous, the enemies formidable and unseen. But she was no longer the solitary academic who had first uncovered the cipher. She was a guardian, a beacon against the shadows. The dawn had come, and with it, a new beginning. The truth was out, and Elena Novak would face whatever storm followed with unyielding courage. But as the city lights flickered on across Prague, a faint shadow moved unseen, watching, waiting. The game was far from over. And so, beneath the ancient stones, the battle for truth continued. A silent war in the heart of a city that held more secrets than the world could imagine.